Cheryl Matson, head of the Evergrove Heights Community Committee, was halfway into a tirade about non-native fern encroachment when my wife gently shut the iron gate in her face. The resulting clang echoed down the wooded cul-de-sac like a bell tolling for nonsense. Through the bars, calm as ever, my wife handed her a folded legal document, a court-ordered cease and desist signed by a superior court judge. Cheryl took it like it might explode, her souped-up golf cart still wedged sideways where she'd tried to blaze through a shortcut between two boulders. Just 3 months ago, life had been serene. I'm Miles Rourke, and my wife Anna and I had retired to a cozy timber cabin in Evergrove Heights, a forested, gated community where the deer wandered freely, and the cell signal was a myth. I'd just wrapped up my career as a fraud investigator, ready to embrace the quiet hum of nature, not petty politics. Our 3-acre patch of heaven came with a whispering creek and a porch view worth framing. We'd chosen this spot specifically for its promise of peace, far from office buzzers and meddling neighbors. Cheryl had other ideas. Her self-appointed kingdom encompassed the half-mile stretch of Pine Hollow Drive, and she ruled it with a lanyard and clipboard combo that would make airport security jealous. Barely over 5 feet tall, she compensated with orthopedic wedges and the voice of a malfunctioning fire alarm. Her signature outfit, a cherry red windbreaker with a self-laminated badge that read, Neighborhood Standards Enforcement, and beige cargo shorts year-round. Her golf cart was decked out with a megaphone, hazard lights, and what looked like an emergency scanner. Every morning at 6:45 a.m., she'd sweep the streets like a suburban general, hunting for rule breaches only she seemed to recognize. It started innocently enough, a neon pink notice pinned to our mailbox with duct tape. Foliage overgrowth must be trimmed to 3 feet max. Wild growth patterns are prohibited. I laughed. Anna didn't. She'd seen this kind of behavior before in her days as a litigation aide. People clinging to crumbs of authority. The next week came another gem. Smoke plume exceeds visual tolerance. Please consider alternative heating methods. Followed by critiques on our non-standard gravel acoustics, and a notice that our porch lanterns were creating low visibility zones. Then came the real circus, surveillance. Cheryl staked out our property from the fork of a tree, scribbling in a weatherproof notepad. At first, we waved. She glared. Once, we caught her examining our compost with a selfie stick, muttering about unauthorized leaf mass. When I asked what she was doing, she claimed it was a routine soil compliance survey, and warned that decomposing citrus could lower adjacent property values. Anna began documenting everything, dates, times, pictures. Her legal instincts had officially kicked in. Soon we were cited for non-conforming bird shelters, unsanctioned hammock use, and best of all, disturbing the peace with owl hoots after dusk. Yes, apparently the resident owl hadn't cleared its call schedule with the committee. Things escalated. Cheryl initiated a lawn chair, sun exposure assessment, claiming our recliners reflected aggressive shadows. The assessment team, Cheryl and her teenage grandson, who mostly stared at his phone. They debated the angle of the sun using a warped protractor while Anna and I relaxed in the alleged shadow of doom. Soon she was peering into our dining room windows during dinner, checking for invasive houseplants. She flew a drone over our cabin to inspect for unregulated rooftop vegetation. Once, she spent 4 hours crawling our lawn with a ruler, blade by blade, checking for infractions over the 2.5-inch limit. We installed a tiny weather vane on the shed. She filed an official protest about unsanctioned meteorological indicators. Then, one foggy morning, things snapped. We came home to find a backhoe parked in our driveway, flanked by 2 confused contractors. Cheryl had submitted a forged work order, claiming our herb garden retaining wall, a decorative foot-high stone circle, posed a geological threat. Anna's expression shifted from puzzled to nuclear. She asked the contractors to hold off, then returned with her phone, camera, and a digital recorder. Anna, who once helped dismantle a corrupt parks board, began photographing everything. She called zoning, land management, forestry, you name it. Speaking in the terrifyingly calm voice only legal pros have, she rattled off ordinances from memory. Within an hour, she'd filed complaints with 5 departments and scheduled calls with 3 more. The contractors, smelling legal heat, packed up and bailed. Cheryl arrived 20 minutes later, screeching in her golf cart, demanding to know why her project had been halted. Anna smiled and told her she might want to check her voicemail. 2 days later, we got visitors, a stern environmental officer named Lisa Conrad and a no-nonsense sheriff's deputy named Graham. They'd been alerted to potential forgery and unauthorized excavation. Lisa reviewed the order and frowned. Deputy Graham did not mince words. Terms like document falsification and unauthorized access to private zoning records started flying. Cheryl attempted to explain the threat to aesthetic harmony, but the deputy stopped her cold and demanded her paperwork. Turns out Cheryl had not only forged signatures, but illegally obtained zoning data. And as a final cherry, our cabin was built in 1959, well before the HOA was even formed. We were fully exempt from her rules. When asked if we wanted to pursue charges, Anna handed them a binder titled, The Fern Queen's Final Reign, complete with color tabs and annotated screenshots. Deputy Graham raised an eyebrow. "This is trial ready," he said. Anna simply nodded. A week later, the Evergrove Heights board held an emergency session in Cheryl's own driveway. The community center was inaccessible because Cheryl had changed the locks. Members arrived with flashlights and lawn chairs. Cheryl tried to shout down the meeting with a karaoke mic. She insisted she was preserving property values. The board voted unanimously to suspend her. Cheryl tried to overrule it, citing a made-up emergency clause. But the treasurer, a retired attorney named Ms. Delgado, informed her calmly that the only emergency was her behavior. And then came Cheryl's final spectacle. At sunrise on Saturday, she stormed our driveway wearing her red windbreaker, military-patterned yoga pants, and a toy sheriff badge. Flanked by her knitting group, looking horrified, and her grandson already turning back toward their van, she shouted about restoring law and order. But she wasn't ready for Anna, who met her at the gate in her old courtroom blazer and a steely smile. She slammed the gate shut just as Cheryl launched into a rant about unsanctioned garden decor. Through the bars, Anna served her the court order with quiet authority. Behind her, the offensive birdhouses now displayed miniature flags, and I'd programmed the porch lights to play the national anthem on motion. Cheryl retreated, cart limping, yellow tape flapping behind her like funeral streamers. Her allies fled. Her grandson gave us a quiet thumbs up. 2 weeks later, the verdict arrived. Cheryl was fined $15,000 for forged filings and barred from any leadership role in the community. The judge, visibly annoyed, called it a gross misuse of fictitious authority, and ordered her to attend a seminar titled Know Your Limits. When You're Not the Law. When the judgment was read, Cheryl's mouth dropped so wide her grandson later said he saw her tonsils. She mumbled about constitutional rights, but her lawyer had already zipped his bag. As she was led out, she shot us one last look, a mix of fury, disbelief, and wilted pride. Anna simply waved.